The proclamation of the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus told his disciples this parable. The reign of God is like the case of the owner of an estate who went out at dawn to hire workmen for his vineyard. After reaching an agreement with them for the usual daily wage, he sent them out to his vineyard. He came out about mid-morning and saw other men standing around the marketplace without work. So he said to them, "You too go along to my vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is fair." At that, they went away. He came out again around noon and mid-afternoon and did the same. Finally, going out in the late afternoon, he found still others standing around. To these he said, "Why have you been standing here idle all day?" "No one has hired us," they told him. He said, "You go to the vineyard too." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, "Call the workmen and give them their pay, but begin with the last group and end with the first." When those hired late in the afternoon came up, they received a full day's pay. And when the first group appeared, they supposed they would get more. Yet they received the same daily wage. Thereupon they complained to the owner, "This last group did only an hour's work, but you have put them on the same basis as us who have worked a full day in the scorching heat." "My friend," he said to one in reply, "I do you no injustice. You agreed on the usual wage, did you not? Take your pay and go home. I intend to give this man who was hired last the same pay as you. I am free to do as I please with my money, am I not? Or are you envious because I am generous? Thus the last shall be first, and the first shall be last." The Gospel of the Lord.
Our Gospel for this Sunday is taken from St. Matthew. We have been reflecting on the mystery of divine generosity. The just God is generous, and His generosity blows away our norms of justice. In the first reading from the prophet Isaiah, the wicked, the sinful people are being invited to face God, the just God. And this should instill fear among the sinners. For if you approach God using your human understanding of strict justice, you know the only thing that you will get from God is punishment. But Isaiah assures the sinner, God is just, but God is generous in forgiving. God does not operate according to our human thoughts, notions, concepts of strict justice. Again, God does not deny, does not negate justice, but the demands of justice cannot contain and cannot limit the generosity of God. This generosity was experienced by St. Paul. According to human justice, St. Paul deserved annihilation from God, punishment from God. Let him be doomed to forgetfulness. But God, in His generous mercy, hailed this man to become an apostle, the greatest apostle, in fact. Moved and changed by the generosity of God, St. Paul in the second reading shows the proper response of a person. Equal generosity. He will give himself totally to Christ, even if it means dying for Christ. Or, if Christ wills it so, he would continuously give himself to the mission. In death, in life, in mission, the only thing that matters for St. Paul is, let me be generous. Let me live for Christ. For Christ lived and died for me. I do not merit it. I do not deserve it. Jesus went beyond the demands of justice for me. So now, I will go beyond the limits and the demands of justice for God and for Jesus Christ. How beautiful this mystery of divine generosity generating equal magnanimity and generosity in the heart of St. Paul, a sinner who now searches for God and serves God. In the gospel, we have this parable of the owner of an estate who hired people to work in his vineyard at different times of the day. And I'm sure our sense of human justice will be tested by the parable. The first group of workers was hired at dawn, imagine, before sunrise, maybe 5 o'clock, even 4 o'clock in the morning. And the just God, personified here by the owner of the estate, said, okay, I hire you and I will pay you what the daily worker deserves, a full daily wage. That was the agreement. Then the owner of the estate went out and saw other people waiting without work, waiting for work, looking for work. He saw their need, so he hired them again at around 9 o'clock in the morning. So the first group had already put in maybe 4 or 5 hours of work by that time. Then another group was hired at noontime. Then another group at 3 o'clock. Then finally another group at 5 o'clock. No? And the working day will close at 6. So they would work only for an hour. But from the group hired at 9 o'clock down to the group hired at 5 in the evening, on the afternoon, there was no promise of how much the owner would pay them. He just hired them, and they probably thought, we will get something commensurate to the amount of work and the length of work or hours of work that we put in. Just enough. I think that's just for our human consideration and even God's consideration. What are our expectations here? Those who worked longer will get much bigger pay. Those who worked shorter hours will get less because they put in less work. Yeah, and that's fair enough. That was the expectations even of the figures in the parable. But the owner of the estate, who is the figure of God, wants to impart a lesson regarding justice and divine generosity. When it was time to pay them their wages, look, he reversed the order. He started paying those hired the latest, those who had put in only 1 hour of work. And wow, they received the salary good for a full day's work. Now, put yourselves, dear brothers and sisters, in the shoes of those who worked starting at dawn. Put yourselves in the shoes of those who worked from 9 in the morning or 12 at noon or even 3 in the afternoon. I'm sure your expectation would be like this. Oh, those who put in 1 hour of work got a full day's wage. I will definitely get more because I worked longer. But as the pay was given to the different groups, it was the same amount. That generated a complaint, especially from the first group. and look at the response of the owner. I am just to you. We agreed on a full day's wage, right? And I am giving it to you. I have not forgotten my commitment to you. I am being fair. That was our agreement. So, yes, God is just. But what generated the questioning on the part of those who had worked longer? It is the human concept of strict justice. I am entitled to the work that I put in. So, it is entitlement, it is meriting something in return for what I have put in. That is human justice. But the owner said, I have been just to you, or are you envious of my generosity? I am free to do with my wealth. If I want to give it away, then why will you contest me? I am generous. So the owner, who is God, is not controlled only by our merits, what we deserve. God sees also the needs. God probably heard the complaint of the last group. No one hired us. No one has hired us. We need to live. So God sees beyond human justice. Generosity of God, giving to us what we do not deserve, but He sees what we need. And God is touched. And we hope we experience that every day, and we hope we learn from that experience. Every day we benefit from the generosity of God. Let us look at that. And you will marvel at the fact that God has not treated us only with justice, but with generosity. With justice alone, nobody would survive God. But with generosity on the part of God, we are alive. We are given a new chance. We are even able to serve the church. This is the experience of someone whose generosity in serving the church has been quite an inspiration to me. A simple worker in a parish who gives himself totally beyond the required hours of work and beyond what the parish's means could afford to give him. Once I asked the person, said, you're expected to work only up to this hour. You may go home now. Said, and I jokingly told him, we cannot afford to give you some sort of extra pay. He said, Father, if you only knew my past, you would not think that I would end up serving in church. The Lord has been generous to me in His kindness. The Lord picked me up from the gutters. The Lord picked me up from an old way of life. Only the Lord gave me what I did not deserve, love. And what can I give Him in return? Love too. I don't count hours anymore because God did not count my sins, my fault. The generosity of God is the beginning of new life. The word has been exposed. Let us now fulfill it.